just because some quick service chain invented this type of salad 30, 40 years ago doesn't mean that if we're making it today, we can't introduce new, exciting ingredients that we now can get our hands on. This is that suburban lunch ideal. You're eating in your car. You haven't seen your kids in 14 days. This is that 9 to 5 salad. Hi, my name is Lucas Sin. I'm the chef of Nice Day Chinese and Junzi Kitchen here in New York City. I'm showing you my take on the generic Asian noodle salad. The proper name for it is probably a Yuzu Chilled Noodle Salad. We're gonna take a good hard look at this pervasive generic Asian dressing that seems to exist on chain menus everywhere. And then we're gonna introduce some new ingredients into it to give it a little bit more brightness, a little bit more zest, and maybe skew it towards something of a more honest Asian/Japanese dressing with ingredients that you can get at your local Asian supermarket. The building blocks today of the dressing are going to be this yuzu marmalade. This is a Korean product called yujacha. It's basically a marmalade made out of yuzu. If you don't know what yuzu is, think of it as somewhere in between an orange and a lemon. It's got a lot of zestiness. It's got a little bit of bitterness in the peel. It's very, very approachable. And yuzu kosho, which is a lacto-fermented chili pepper paste in Japan that also has yuzu peels inside of it. It's ridiculously aromatic. A lot of neo-American chefs have been using it for different applications. In Japan, we mostly use this for miso soup, sometimes for sashimi, sometimes for boiled dishes like nabemono. Today, we're gonna whisk it into the dressing to reinforce that yuzu flavor and give it the tiniest bit of a kick. The third ingredient that's important here is ponzu, sometimes used as a marinade, but as a dipping sauce, it's a citrusy soy sort of dressing. On top of that, we have our vinegars and oils, which is apple cider vinegar, olive oil, and sesame oil. We have a little bit of sesame paste, a little bit of fresh garlic and fresh ginger, a little bit of water to thin it out, as well as salt to taste. There are so many emulsifiers in here that we can throw all of it into the blender at once, blend it all up. It's gonna whisk a little bit of air in there, and it's gonna stabilize. This is not a type of finicky dressing where you have to slowly drizzle in your oil. You have enough going on in here to keep everything together. So that's the good news, makes it super easy. First things first, yuzu. Apple cider vinegar, we're staying on that fruity theme. We're gonna put in our oils as well. Olive oil is the #1 oil because that's the base. And then a little bit of sesame oil for nuttiness. Sesame paste also helps emulsify it and gives it a little bit more body, as well as reinforces that nuttiness. A little bit of ponzu for citrus flavor, but also a little bit of that soy. Garlic and ginger, freshly grated. Yuzu kosho. We're gonna add a little bit of it to give it a little bit of a kick. A little bit more because the spice is good. So screw this on, whole thing's gonna blend up. Open it, take a look. Beautiful white beige color, a little bit yellow. Good. Salt, just to balance out all that sweetness. A little bit of water to thin it out if you think that's necessary, and then we're gonna finish it. Once the dressing is blended until it's mostly smooth, we're gonna take this out, put it inside of a bowl, put it aside for later. Here's your dressing. The good news about the food processor is that it incorporates a little bit of air into your dressing, so it makes it a little bit lighter. It's not super, super dense, but this is what you kind of want to see. This is the right color. There's no clumps, there's no sheen of oil over the top. Everything's incorporated. That's the upgraded, extra yuzu dressing that plays off of the nuttiness of that sesame, that brightness of that ginger, and a little bit of citrus notes between the ponzu, the yuzu kosho, and the yuzu honey. Most of these Asian salads actually tend to be really quite beautiful. There are a couple of things that go on it that you can't miss, like these beautiful canned mandarin oranges and this generic shelf-stable wonton crisp. But a lot of the other vegetables matter as well, so try to get as nice of a quality of vegetable as you can get. And we're just gonna slice and dice everything into nice little shapes so that it looks pretty when it's on our beautiful plate. Let's do a bunch of cucumbers, a little thin, not too thin. A lot of actually Chinese technique revolves around pushing the water content out of an ingredient so that you can taste more of the ingredient in and of itself. The way we do this is by a process of osmosis. So here are some cucumbers that we slice sort of thinly, not too thinly, at about a 1-to-1 salt and sugar ratio. You're just gonna give it a couple pinches of salt and sugar And you're gonna kind of rub all that salt and sugar in. This is kind of a quick cure. This is my favorite way to do hard vegetables. This works for things like chayote. It works for harder cabbages, even like Chinese broccoli or something. Wait 30 minutes and you're gonna see a little bit of water at the bottom, and then you'll squeeze your cucumber and you'll get a sort of nicely textured and more cucumber tasting cucumber. So we're just gonna let this sit on the counter for about 30 minutes or so. Let's do some carrots. The carrot, we're gonna slice a little bit thinner than the cucumber for texture purposes. Here are a bunch of cherry tomatoes that we're gonna cut into cute little quarters. The lettuce itself, we're gonna try to keep it really tight, and we're gonna want to slice this as thinly as possible. Not ridiculously thin, but thin enough that it feels a little elegant and elevated. There you go. Radicchio for color. Also, try to get it sort of nice and thin. Just like this. And the last little bit here are the pea shoots, or any type of shoots. Just because I like the texture of it, it's pretty. This is a nice little garnish over the top. Most of the influence of this sort of generic Asian salad is actually mostly Japanese. Between the fruit of the yuzu and the citrus notes and the sesame, a lot of it seems to be pointing towards some sort of like colorful, bright, delicious, elegant stereotype of Japanese cooking, which is, fortunately for us, true. We're going to be using soba noodles today for two reasons. Number one is to play on this idea of Japanese influence being the main influence for these generic Asian salads, but also soba noodles are really, really delicious. They are made from buckwheat, and they do really, really well when they're cold. They last quite a long time after they've been cooked and run under a cold bath, unlike many wheat noodles or egg noodles, which have a tendency to clump. So for a noodle salad, whatever that means, this is one of the best noodles that you could use. Make sure you have a generous amount of water inside of your pot, and when those noodles go in, that you do your best to help them separate from each other. Soba noodles don't need to be cooked for very long. Around 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, check your package instructions. But you want to err on the side of a little less, because soba noodles can really overcook really quickly. You want to stir for the first 30 seconds to a minute to make sure it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pot and the noodles aren't clumped together. But after that, you can kind of step back and let it do its thing. It's been about 2.5 minutes. Bring it up, check that it's nice and soft. Once you're there, take it off the heat. And we're gonna dump this directly into an ice bath. Because of how fragile these noodles are, you want it to stop cooking as quickly as possible. Try to cool it down as quickly as you can. Unlike many flour noodles, I'm very okay with running soba noodles through water because of how flavorful the noodle is on its own, and because we're serving it inside of a salad, as in there's gonna be vegetables and all these other things tossed in between the strands of noodles. You wanna make sure that you can wash off as much of that starch as possible so it's not gummy. That would mean that the noodles would stick to each other and it wouldn't actually toss effectively in the salad. Soba noodles, nice and cooled down. After this, we just have to drain this off, get all that water off there, and then we'll plate. I'm gonna take all of this romaine, this green lettuce, and this radicchio, and we're gonna toss this with a little bit of our dressing, just so nothing goes unflavored. This recipe isn't just a salad dressing, it's got a little bit of body to it. It's not just sort of like sweet and acidic and all those things. The reason for that is because there's noodles inside too. So you don't want it to be too one-dimensional. You want to keep in mind that at once it's a noodle dish and a salad dish. Set that aside, and then we're gonna start to plate. So lettuce on the bottom. Gorgeous. Soba noodles, same thing. Twirl it, put it all together. And then in homage of the greatest quick service restaurants of this country, we're going to plate everything separately. Here is a little bit of carrots on one side. Here are a little bit of the tomatoes on the other side. Cured cucumbers, leave the water in the bowl. And then the orange slices. Ooh, so cute. And then a little bit of this salad dressing over the top. And usually I like to serve it with a little extra dressing on the side because some people like to overdress their salads. A little bit of the wonton crisps. This is probably the best part of it, so don't be shy here. And some of the cress. Don't plate it right on top of the noodle because you want to make sure that you can kind of still see the noodle. So here it is. Yuzu Chilled Noodle Salad with your beautiful array of vegetables, especially the cured cucumbers, which are nice and crispy, in-season tomatoes, carrots, and you can't miss the wonton crisp, which is the best part, and these cute little mandarin oranges that come from a can. Mix it all up so that every bite you get a little bit of everything. Sweetness, orange, cucumber. The radicchio is nice and bitter. The mandarin orange is so sweet. There's like nice, like a little bit of spice in that yuzu dressing. There's a little bit of like savory undertones, a little bit of that ponzu. It's just so easy to crush a bowl of this and like get right back to work. It's the easiest thing to eat in the world. And it's got soft noodles and crunchy wonton crisps. Honestly, it doesn't get better than this. There you have it. Here's my take on the Asian noodle salad. If you want to know more about other noodles, I got a sesame chilled noodle for you, as well as a Hong Kong style bagged noodle that you can get if you subscribe to Food in One. Let me know if your noodles turned out okay. Let me know if they're beautiful and bright from everything that spring stands for in the comments below.